What the Flux is brought to you by DeLoreanRental.com. If you're looking to rent a DeLorean time machine, DeLorean Rental has you covered. They have time machines all across the United States, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and adding more cars daily. Check out all of their packages to see what would best fit your event at DeLoreanRental.com or call 708-292-0236.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
All your questions will be answered. Roll tape.
Live from the former Institute of Future Technology in Orlando, Florida, you're listening to What the Flux with your hosts Anthony Furtado, Brooke Bromery, Caitlin Larkin, and Eugene Schnee.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the #1 show in Planet Vulcan, What the Flux.
Number one on Planet Vulcan? Mm-hmm. I didn't get that email. When did that happen?
I got a message.
That's awesome.
Yeah, #1 in Planet Vulcan. We did it.
That's great. That's probably the best accomplishment we've had in the last couple months.
Let me tell you, I'm very proud of us.
I am too.
I want to thank all our Vulcan fans.
Yeah.
Specifically Darth Vader.
Darth Vader from Planet Vulcan. Yeah. We love you.
We love you. Thank you so much for everything. We just want to acknowledge and say a big hello to Anthony and Brooke, wherever you guys are. They'll be coming back soon, guys. Don't worry.
Yes.
We already paid the ransom. The kidnapper said that they're going to let them go. Hopefully soon.
I
know. I mean, it's just we missed you guys, so hopefully we'll see them soon. And Caitlin, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
We have an amazing show today.
Do we?
We do. You know how we always tell people that we have an amazing show, but we really don't?
Yeah.
Today we do.
Oh, man.
No, we
They're going to realize we're a bunch of liars.
I think they're on to us.
Uh-oh.
No, we actually have an amazing show today. We actually have a special guest with us today. I'm actually really excited for this guest because I'm actually a fan of his.
Yeah.
I'm a Mr. Caseen Gaines. This man does it all. He's an author, director of theater, educator, popular culture historian. I don't even know how he finds time to breathe.
Oh, no. We'll have to ask him.
Breathe, man, breathe. But before that, there's something more important than our guest.
There is?
Yes. You know what it is?
I think I have an idea, but I'll let you say it.
Ooh. It's Back to the Future News, folks.
Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Dr. Stay. This is tomorrow's newspaper.
Could I go to the library and look myself up in the old newspaper archive?
Thank you. All right, Back to the Future news for this week, the first week of June. But let's go back a little bit to the very last day of May. We had a very special birthday, Eugene.
Ooh.
It was
My birthday was in February.
I know, but a Back to the Future birthday.
Oh.
Our girl, our #1, Leah Thompson.
Oh, Leah.
Leah celebrated a birthday on May 31st, and I'm a little sad.
Why is that?
Because I tweeted her wishing her a happy birthday from both my personal Twitter and our podcast Twitter. And I noticed that she was saying, thank you to other people who wished her a happy birthday except for us.
What?
Yeah, I'm a little sad, and I'm wondering if, maybe this All Hail Leah Thompson thing totally creeped her out, and now, she wants nothing to do with us.
Nah.
Because she is online all the time. She legit is, always on Twitter, retweeting or tweeting, and she didn't say anything.
I don't take it personally. I mean, sometimes people just don't see how it does. I mean, we're still a show. We're still a pretty new show, so a lot of people don't even know who we are and everything like that. I want to thank Leah Thompson for sending me a personal letter and everything, because I congratulate. I only say, hey, Leah. And she told me, thank you so much for remembering my birthday and everything like that.
I'm going to punch you.
And thank you for the autograph picture. I didn't even need that, but thank you so much for that, too.
You can't see me right now, but I'm giving Eugene like the biggest death stare of all time right now. That's not nice.
Nah, she's cool. She's cool.
Yeah,
we miss her. We miss her. We want her to do the show just because it's fun, and obviously she's such a big important role in the movie.
Yeah, my dream is that she'll be like, "No, guys, I don't want to just do a Zoom call with you. I want to come to Orlando in person and come to What the Flux Studios and
What the Flux Studios
or wherever it is that we broadcast from. Oh, the former Institute of Future Technology. That's where we're from.
That's right.
And I want to, hang out with you guys and do a show with you live. That's my dream.
We'll take her to Universal Studios.
Yeah, we will.
Hell yeah. What else you got?
Speaking of Leah, so she's doing something for charity where the highest bidder on CharityBuzz.com gets a 15-minute Zoom chat with Leah Thompson. Right now, the highest bid is $425, and it ends on June 11th. And here, you speak Spanish. Can you say that for me? Because I don't want to butcher it. The charity.
Corazón de Vida Foundation. It means Heart of Life. Oh, that sounds cool. It's for a purpose organization breaking the cycle of poverty and child homelessness for orphan and abandoned children in Baja, Mexico. Oh, that's actually a really good cause.
I didn't want to butcher the name because I can't speak Spanish for my life.
Don't worry. I got you, girl. I got you. Right now we have the highest bidder is at
$425, yeah. For a 15-minute Zoom call with Leah Thompson. And I looked into it because I was like, if we raise enough money, we could just record the Zoom call and have it on the show. And no, you cannot record the Zoom call. You can't take pictures of you on the Zoom call. There's a lot of rules and regulations on it, so who knows? But the auction ends June 11th, and you can talk to Leah Thompson for 15 whole minutes.
Well, do you have $426?
I mean, I could probably split it with you.
Oh, yeah?
I could probably go halvesies to outbid this person.
Does anyone know if they're still taking blood for... Do they still pay money for that?
Oh, yeah, they do.
They do?
Blood, plasma, all kinds of gross stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Things to consider.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We'll let you know.
Yeah. Speaking of birthdays, though, Ricky Dean Logan, who played Data in Back to the Future 2, your favorite costume that you said on last week's show. That's right. Also celebrated a birthday on June the 1st, so happy birthday, Ricky Dean Logan.
Happy birthday.
And now kind of towards theme park news, because we are here in the great city of Orlando. Literally, Universal Studios is across the street from where we record. We can see it from our house.
Yes.
So Universal's been shut down for the last 2 months, but they're slowly reopening, which is really exciting. I can say that I've been back to one of my part-time jobs, which is awesome. So things are kind of starting to get a little bit back to normal. But Universal is doing something really cool to kind of slowly reopen the parks. The first 2 days, they're having Universal team members go in. Then the next 2 days, they're going to have annual pass holders go. And then lastly, on June 5th, the parks will be open to the public again. Mm-hmm. And so we had some friends at the park yesterday for team member preview. And I'm trying to go later today myself. So we'll see what happens. But Doc Brown is doing like this really cool meet and greet. Because, of course, you can't go up and take pictures with the characters anymore because COVID. He's standing on top of the ELB time train.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he's standing on top of the time train, and he's talking to people that way, and you can go and, take selfies with him and have him behind you on the train, and it's pretty cool. And speaking of Universal Studios...
Is the DeLorean back?
I didn't see any pictures, but I know that they put out, like, a temporary DeLorean, like the one that Doc actually drives around the park in. They put that outside while the Oxnard car is apparently getting worked on. I heard...
They know that it's not going to time travel, right?
Yeah.
I hope they know that.
Yeah, I'm sure they know that. But rumor has it that the Oxnard car that is at Universal Studios in Orlando is going to be refurbished. Now, we don't know if this is true, but that's kind of just what I've heard. So that would be cool if it gets the same treatment that the A car did in California. Because it deserves it. Because, I mean as cool as it is that we get to go and see it and kind of, poke it when no one's looking. No, I've never done that.
Never.
It deserves the same treatment as the A car did in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's pretty rough shape.
Yeah, it is. And it deserves some TLC. So I'll go check it out. I'm supposed to go later today. And if I can't make it today, I know that you're going.
I'm going to go tomorrow. And the first thing I'm going to do, I have a mission from God.
Yes.
I'm going to go. My mission is to do Hagrid.
Yeah.
I wanted to get on that Hagrid's ride. I'm a big theme park lover. I love roller coasters. And in a weird way, roller coasters relax me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's cheaper than a shrink.
Yeah.
And it's actually I miss doing. That's one of the things that I was telling my girlfriend. It was like one of the things I miss doing is go to concerts.
Yep.
Go to a movie theater, and do roller coasters. That's like the number one thing. And the fact that Universal Studios is opening again right now, and of course we'll be we're wearing our mask and everything.
Right.
Being safe as always, and. But it's nice to almost, like we're even now driving here and just seeing the parking lot filled with employee cars and people just going into the park. It just feels almost like nice.
It does.
It's starting to feel that normality again.
A little bit. You know, it's weird going through City Walk and, wearing the masks and stuff. And, you go, oh, man, this is so uncomfortable. And then you're like, you know what? You need to leave these first world problems behind. You can't complain. You just need to be happy that you're able to do anything now at all. So it sucks that you have to keep reminding yourself that, but I mean,
big kudos to Universal for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because honestly, people need to work, and they're so excited. I loved what they did there. They do like welcome home team members.
Yeah, they did.
That was really cool.
I was in the garage. I think I posted that picture on my personal Facebook, and all in the team member garage are all just welcome back signs and you're home and all that kind of stuff. So I can't complain. They've been doing a wonderful job these last 2 months, giving people what they need and being there for all the team members. And now we're trying to do our best to be there for the community. But also you have to remember, just because these theme parks are open doesn't mean that COVID is gone. No. So you have to go at your own risk. If you feel comfortable going, then that's on you. Yeah. So
it's like a pimple. Like when you have a pimple and you pop it and you think it's gone. Yep. But it's still there.
Oh yeah.
And it still has that little extra pus in there.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Ew.
Have that. Oh yeah, it's there. It's in your head right there. That little extra pus right there. You're welcome.
Oh, gross.
Well, we'll definitely be safe from that. Anything else?
Yes.
What else?
So speaking of Universal Studios, it's their 30th anniversary this year. And they got some amazing 30th anniversary merchandise that I cannot wait to get my hands on. Now you're probably going, Caitlin, what does this have to do with Back to the Future? It has to do with everything with Back to the Future. Because they're releasing like t-shirts and hats and all kinds of goodies that have the Back to the Future, the ride logos on it. And they even have special commemorative Back to the Future, the ride glasses.
Glasses?
To drink out of, yes. So they not only have the Back to the Future glass, but they have a Jaws glass, an E.T. glass, and a Confrontation glass.
Confrontation?
Yeah. King Kong.
What?
Confrontation, yeah.
Oh my God, I completely forgot about that.
So it's a set of 4, but you can buy as many as you want. They sell them individually.
Yeah, I don't know that.
And I want all of them, but I'm probably going to get multiples of the Back to the Future glasses because they look awesome.
I saw them. Yeah, I saw them posted. They look really good too.
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely be getting my hands on those. But
so this is the reason why you guys got to come to Orlando. You got to come here and do the ride, talk to Doc, buy the glass, come say hi to What the Flux people.
Well, one day when things really get back to normal, we have to do like a fan meetup.
Oh, we will. Trust me. We're going to make the What the Flux con.
Yeah, something like that. Like, just...
You guys can come and cosplay as us.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
No.
Come on.
No, but we would love one day when things get back to normal to have a fan meetup at Universal Studios. That'd be really so much fun.
One of the ideas that we talked about was in November, why we picked November, I don't know, just a random date. What about November... Just tell me a number.
November 9th, my dad's birthday? Nah. Who cares about that?
November 2nd? How about November 5th?
I mean, November 5th is a special date in history.
Why is that?
Because that's the day Doc invented time travel.
Ooh, that means that everybody that day has to go in the toilet and
fall off and hit your head on the porcelain.
We encourage it.
You have to hit your head on the sink and invent the flux capacitor.
Whatever comes to your mind, you have to draw it and send it to us.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
No.
Okay, so just hit yourself in the head really hard on November 5th at the edge of the sink, and whatever you draw, you have to tweet it to us.
You know someone's actually going to do that, right?
Oh my God, please don't. Please don't hurt yourselves.
Anyway, we'll figure something out. But
I thought you were going to say November 12th.
November 12th, we could do Tim as well too.
Yeah.
But I kind of think the whole go to the toilet.
No, that's really funny.
We'll figure something to do on November. Obviously, we're talking about the date when Marty went to a little place called where?
1955.
Mm-hmm. And we're thinking of doing obviously, depending on how things are, hopefully the world will be in a different. Better phase, but we were thinking about doing a little get together with fans and everything like that. We're gonna even have DeLoreans. We're looking for ideas right now. We're probably gonna be at a comic book shop, and we're gonna decorate it as in the 50s or even cafe 80s. I don't know. We're
thinking of stuff. We're brainstorming.
We're brainstorming right now, but we definitely want to do something because one of the things that we love about this show is the fact when we hear from you guys. And again, we are so happy when we get letters and everything like that.
Yeah, it makes us all giddy. But it'd be
so cool to meet you guys and just take pictures, and we can put you on the wall in the Hall of Shame. The Hall of Fame.
The What the Flux Hall of Fame.
The What the Flux Hall of Fame. And so things like that we want to do, and of course, as soon as we get the more information about that, we'll definitely be publishing it and sending it.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we actually have a fan letter.
We have a fan letter.
I've got something for you. A letter.
Okay, so this is the best. And obviously the person who wrote us this letter has been listening, and they know how to, get on our good side right here.
Yeah.
Because first thing it says is, hello from Melbourne, Australia. Yes, that's correct. You have an Australian fan. Because we're always so blown away when we hear where you guys are writing us from.
That's
so
badass.
Yes. This letter is from our new buddy, Adrian Salerno.
Adrian!
And he continues to say, great show, guys. I'm insanely obsessed with Back to the Future, and now my 3 kids under are the same. I came across you guys when I went searching for some Back to the Future content on iTunes, and I found you guys. You all have great chemistry, and I like the fact you don't take yourself seriously unlike some other podcasts, which shoots Back to the Future to a T. Keep up the great work, and I'll no doubt email you guys again soon. Australia, what the flux represent? Adrian Salerno.
Represent in Australia.
They're listening to us down under.
Well, there goes our fan base.
I just hope that, he's eating a Vegemite sandwich and listening to What the Flux.
Nice. Adrian, thank you so much.
Adrian, that's awesome. I can't believe that, we've heard from people from Scotland, from England, from Australia, from all over the U.S. It's just really mind-blowing how far, this has gone, and we've only been doing this for a couple months.
Don't forget Vulcan.
And Planet Vulcan.
Yeah, even though it blew it up. But,
I know.
That's how devoted they are.
Yeah.
They're literally, their planet is destroyed. They're living probably on rocks floating in space, but they're like, shit, we got to listen to What the Flux.
Yeah.
Goes to tell you.
It does. It does. It really is amazing.
Well, Adrian, we want to thank you for your letter, and I'm going to do it.
He's gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it.
I still want to make a sound. I gotta make a sound bite for when this happens. What the fuck's best friend?
That's right, Adrian. You are the official What the Flux Best Friend of the Week. This is a very prestigious award. This is the Oscars of podcasts, if you will.
It really is.
It really is. It's a glamorous thing, and it's so glamorous that, it's there you go.
I win.
That was for you, Adrian. This thing is so prestigious that we're in the works. We're actually in the process of making it real. It's gonna come, folks.
Yes, it is. We're working on it. We're promise.
I constantly have Todd, our graphic designer, who was here the other day.
That's right.
He's in the cave over there. I have him, slap him with a whip. They're like, hurry up! I'm like, I'm going as fast as I can. I'm only a doctor, Jim. No, but Todd, he's working on that. We should be ready. We should have it ready by next week.
Really?
Yeah, by next week we should be ready.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So we can start sending it to
Guys, the design that Eugene came up with, I know I give him a lot of crap, but that's only because I love him. Mm-hmm. But the design that he came up with is fantastic. And I also had no idea that you were such a good artist.
Well, thank you.
I knew you would draw and kind of do stuff here and there, but you're really good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
Eugene
that.
came up with this great concept, and Todd's digitizing it, and we're going to turn it into stickers and buttons, and down the line we're hoping t-shirts.
You know how I came up with the idea?
How?
Well, I was in the toilet one day. And,
Did you slip?
And I slipped, and I started drawing this thing. And my girlfriend opened the door and said, "What the hell happened to the toilet?" And I'm like, I came up with this drawing. And she's like, I'm gonna call the ambulance, but no, I have to draw this. This is my Mona Lisa, and I drew it, and I didn't have a pencil, so I just had to use whatever I had there. So I started drawing it with my own blood. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she's terrified of this right now. And I came up with this design.
It was great.
It was amazing. It was just meant for me. And you know what?
What's that?
We're going to send the original bloody design to Adrian.
Oh, there you go. Gross.
Now, we're going to send you this prestige award, Adrian, so you can show it to your friends. Show it to everyone.
Everyone in Australia.
And, everyone in Australia. And make sure that you tell everybody that you're better than anybody else.
That's right.
Because in What the Flux, we believe that if you are our best friend, you're better than everybody else.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Be the world.
Oh, my God. No, and if you would like to send us a letter or a voice memo, because if you guys will leave us a voice memo, we'll play it at the end of the show on whatever that week, whenever we receive your voice memo. If you want to talk about whatever, you can at whatthefluxpod@gmail.com.
Where else?
You can also send us messages on Facebook at What the Flux the Podcast on Facebook.
Is that what we got?
We also have Twitter and Instagram, which is What the Flux _pod, because some other podcast already has What the Flux Pod.
I bet they don't have a best friend.
And they sure don't. I looked into it. And
really?
You know what's really funny?
What?
Is we keep accidentally getting emails from their podcast. So there is, I didn't realize it until maybe about a month ago, that there is indeed another podcast called What the Flux, but they talk about economics and fluctuations and, economics.
You know how disappointed our fans would be if they actually go to the wrong podcast.
And so I've gotten 2 accidental emails. No, and there was a whole Twitter thread that we got tagged in because they thought that it was them. So I believe their names are Brett and Justin from the other What the Flux podcast. We're really sorry.
Well, there's a shout out for Brett and Justin.
Yeah.
Hey.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Well, technically, see, we're What the Flux the podcast.
And what are they?
And they're just What the Flux.
We just promoted it. They should be promoting us.
They should be. We'll have to listen and see what they say.
What the flux?
What the flux?
That's actually should be the new curse word. Like when people are walking, like you remember in the Smurfs when they were like, "Oh, Smurf,
Smurf
you. Well, I'm gonna Smurf out of you."
Sure.
I know, but there should be people when they hit themselves or something. They should like record themselves like, "What the flux?"
Flux.
Like, Dad, I just got kicked out of school. What the flux? Or like for example, this guy, like maybe a commercial. The guy's like, "Hey, I just met you," and she's like, "Do you want to sleep with me?" What the flux?
No, absolutely not. No.
I thought it was a good idea.
It should be like the old Mentos commercials. And instead of having Mentos, the fresh maker, you have the flux maker. Like food toast for the Foo Fighters' Big Me music video.
That means we need Dave Grohl to do the commercial?
Oh my God. Can we just have Dave Grohl here just to have Dave Grohl? Because he's Dave Grohl. I would be happy just to have Dave Grohl. He doesn't even have to talk. No. He just stands there. Just stands there. I mean, I'd be like... I'm sure even our listeners wouldn't mind if like Dave Grohl just randomly walked through the door. It's like, guys, I'm sorry, we're not talking about Back to the Future today, but Dave Grohl is here. Yeah. I don't think anybody would mind. The microphone is on, and we're just going to be staring at Dave Grohl all the time. And, and everybody will be okay with that. Yeah, people will dig it. Yeah. You know who else will be tuning in? Who? Our guest of the day. Oh, great segue. Great segue, folks. That's why I'm known, Eugene Seg. All right, folks. We are ready for this interview. We are excited for it. We have some amazing questions. We have an amazing guest. Let's get into it. Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the amazing talent, the director, the author, the educator, the popular culture historian, Mr. Caseen Gaines. Yay! Yay! How are you, sir? I'm so good, and I've been trapped in my house, so it was nice to hear a little applause. Like I haven't heard other human beings in months, it feels like. So it's nice to be on. Well, we're very excited to have you here, and you have a lot of titles, my friend. How do you have time to breathe? You know what? I don't really. But you know what? It's funny. You make time for the things that are important to you, and probably like the both of you, talking about Back to the Future is something that's important to me. Like it's a movie that I've always loved. And so that's right. When I have an opportunity to do that, you carve out time and you find time. Do you still find yourself, like, even though probably you've seen the movie maybe like 40, 50 times, do you still find yourself like you're just hanging out of the house and suddenly they put it on the TV or you randomly see it by Netflix and you're like, I'm going to put it again. Do you still do that? It's funny that you say that because just over the weekend, when you write a book about something, sometimes by the time the book is even out, you're kind of exhausted with it. You've been breathing it day in and day out. And Back to the Future 3 was on. And I was like, I'll just watch a couple of minutes of it. And I ended up watching probably about 50 minutes of it because they're just all such fantastic films. So yeah, even though sometimes I think like I'm over it a little bit, it's hard to get over good movies like that. That's true. That's true. Well, Caseen, I have to ask you, since we ask all of our guests here at What the Flux, what is your Back to the Future love story? Oh, wow. So my Back to the Future love story, I was in elementary school. So I didn't see the movies in theaters, actually. I'm a little bit too young for that. But I was in elementary school, maybe about third grade or so, something like that. And I was somewhere between actually sick and also kind of faking sick a little bit. Like, I think I was like a little bit sick. So I went down to the nurse, and the nurse in my elementary school was notorious for being able to be manipulated into letting kids go home sick. Nice. It was really easy. Very sweet woman, but almost too sweet and trusting. And so anyway, I get sent home sick, and I had an aunt who was always kind of on call. She worked nights. So she was, if any of us got sick, she was responsible for sort of picking us up. She was deputized by the rest of the family. And she always had a million movies. I don't know why, but she had a million movies and a million books. And she said, well, I'm going to make you some soup, and, you should watch this movie. I think you'll like it. And it was Back to the Future.
And I remember before she even put it on, just looking at the VHS box and just that beautiful artwork by Drew Struzan. And I was just captivated by it. And I couldn't imagine what it was about. The DeLorean was there. The fire was between his legs. Like, it was just such an amazing, I mean, it's one of my favorite movie posters of all time, that Back to the Future poster.
Yeah.
And so I watched it. I loved it. And when it was over, I said, wow, that's really good. And she said to me, like she had this set up perfectly. She goes, there's another one. And I went, what? And I watched the second one, and then I watched the third one. So I actually watched all 3 Back to the Future films for the first time when I was supposed to be sick from school. And my aunt was a wonderful enabler, and my school nurse was a wonderful enabler. And that's my Back to the Future love story.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Well, we want to send a special shout out to that nurse who sent you home because because of that incident, we just got one of the most amazing books out there, folks. It's called We Don't Need Roads, The Making of the Back to the Future Trilogy. This book actually came out on June 23rd, 2015, correct?
Yes.
And I got my hands on this book a while ago, and I was mesmerized. I was just... The fact that you got so many interviews, the fact that you got Robert Zemeckis, I was like, and I love the fact that you start with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those of you that don't have Caseen's book, the first thing you read is that you're basically like crapping your pants about to interview Robert Zemeckis. And I have to say, if we ever got him on the podcast, we'd probably be in the same shoes as you.
Oh, diapers all around here. And I love that because you're reading this, and one of the things I always loved about Back to the Future is the fact how I could relate myself with Marty and some of the other characters. Like, we all have a little bit of George inside of us, a little bit of Leah or Michael. But the fact that when you're writing this, I felt your nervousness. Does that make sense? Like, I felt like you were. I mean, let's be honest here, Caseen. You were shitting your pants out.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And the funny thing is, I'm not gonna name drop, so I'm not gonna say who the other person was that I spoke to for a project. But Robert Zemeckis was like a pretty big one for me in this book, and I was working on another project with someone else, and I swear to you, it was the only other time that my audio recorder didn't work, and I was like, "What is going on? Like, there's something ill-fated about trying."
Your audio recorder got nervous too.
Yeah, and it's so funny because Robert Zemeckis was such an incredibly generous person, and it was great that he was willing to speak to me for this project. But at the same time, you're trying to demonstrate that you're a serious person and you're worthy of his time, and I'm like, I can't leave him waiting. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I'm not going to talk about the exact status of my pants, but you might not be wrong.
That's for the unrated the director's cut of this episode.
Yeah, and I have to check the book, but in my memory, I think it was my birthday too, which was just like the worst birthday present. I think it was January 24th. I think I have to check the dates in the book, but I think that was the day too. Terrified.
See, another reason why you guys got to buy the book so you can find out. Well, Caseen, we definitely we got so many questions for you. We definitely want to know about you. Now, first things first. Where were you born? Where are you originally from?
So I'm from Hackensack, New Jersey, which is famous because of a couple of songs, and I think Superman.
Billy Joel.
Yeah, who needs a house out in Hackensack? It's a good question. Mm-hmm. I guess me is the answer. But I've lived here my entire life, and for those of you that aren't familiar with New Jersey geography, it's about 15 miles outside of Manhattan, and yeah, that's where I grew up.
Nice. And do you consider yourself this is what you always wanted to do, writing about movies? Because technically, one thing I find interesting about you is that you write a lot about like the backstage things about the makings of, which I'm actually one of those geeks that when I buy a movie, I love learning about the magic behind the magic. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not just saying this to because you're here, but I've considered myself a fan of your work for a while. I actually I got the chance to first hear about you when you did the Rolling Stone feature for the Weird Al show.
Yes.
Back in 2017, and because I actually I get the Rolling Stone magazine. There you go, free promotion for them.
Hey, who doesn't love Rolling Stone?
I know, and I remember. I mean, obviously, I love Weird Al, Weird Al, and I remember reading this story that you wrote, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. This guy's just like me. He likes to know about what's backstage and blah 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 and whatever. And then I got a chance to read about you when you did the Decider and also from Howard the Duck, the oral history.
Yes.
I love the fact that
was one of my favorite things to work on. I have to tell you, that Decider piece for Howard the Duck. I know that's not on the agenda for today, but that was a fun...
It can be. It can be.
Well, it can be because everything connects, as you know.
Look, I love Leah Thompson, so it was just an excuse to call Leah again. That's really what it was to do that.
That's what we gotta do.
That's what we gotta do. Okay, that's it. We're gonna change our strategy. It's no longer like all hail Leah Thompson. Be like, hey, we want to talk to you about Howard the Duck.
And let me tell you something. She's always down to talk about Howard the Duck. It's funny because
that's it. That's our end.
Yeah, when I spoke with her for it, and this was after We Don't Need Rose was already out. So and I'd seen her at a bunch of events, and have a rapport, professional rapport. But when I called her to talk about Howard the Duck, I asked about what were you gutted when the film was horribly received, and she said, no, look, there are lots of faults with that movie, but I think all my parts are pretty good. I have no problem with any of my parts.
Yeah.
That sounds
in all fairness, she is the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
so.
And the music is great too, isn't it? I think
the music. Howard the Duck. I got this. But also, and I actually spoke with Caitlin. I loved what you did for AV Club about when you had a chance to talk to Glenn Berner of why the Spider-Man the musical failed.
Oh, yes.
The biggest blunder of Broadway.
I have to tell you, now, I'm going to repay the compliment because, and thank you for saying that you were a fan. I appreciate that a lot.
Of course.
But I have to tell you, you have hit on some of my absolute favorite things that I have written. Like, writing... books obviously is amazing, and being able to go into a bookstore. But the Howard the Duck piece, the Spider-Man piece for AV Club, I loved working on that with Glenn Berger, and the Weird Al piece. Those were three. Truthfully speaking, those are three that really stand out to me, and they're all free reads. So I'm not even plugging anything at this point. So if people are listening, you can just go to Rolling Stone and AV Club and Decider, and you can read those pieces. But I think that they're just great stories. Like, they're really fun, interesting stories,
They really are. And one of the things that I'll tell all of our fans and everything like that is the fact that you probably heard the stories about Spider-Man the musical sucks. Spider-Man the musical had this. Spider-Man the musical had that. But have you ever actually seen it? And number two, why? You have to. I always tell people, you have to remember, these are all people in a room sitting down, talking about something that costs so much money, what happened. And in your feature, it explains it to the max right there. So highly recommend that. But you know what? We're going to talk about something that doesn't suck.
What doesn't suck?
Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
That's when it would come in right there. That music swell would come.
Yeah, exactly. But also, we want to know more about, before we get to the Back to the Future, why Back to the Future, Caseen? What made you want to write this book? As we've sort of talked about a little bit, I do love a good flop. I do love writing about a good flop, but I also have always been amazed by the Back to the Future trilogy because it's just a really amazing story, I think, especially if you just look at that first film. Bob Gale always says, what kid doesn't imagine what it would be like to go to high school or know what their parents were like as kids? And it's funny because in my own life, my dad is a very big sports guy. He actually played football in college. He had a number of records that he broke, and he was like a really big athlete for his time in his life. And
I am not an athletic kind of person. I mean, I'm someone who grew up to write books about things like the Weird Al Show, and and Pee Wee Herman,
Yes!
yeah, and so one of the things that I always would think about was, my dad and I would probably never be friends in high school. I mean, we have a great relationship, but it's a relationship because I happen to be his son and he happens to be my father. We would never have a reason to speak to each other in high school. And I think that there's something so universal about that speaks to everyone. And as the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future was approaching, which happened to also be, of course, 2015, where Marty the future, where Marty goes in part 2, I was sort of amazed at the time that there wasn't really a comprehensive book that told the story of these films. There was a making of book that came out in maybe 1990 or 1991, but it was very, very skinny, very narrow. It was kind of a promotional item. And I mean that kind of in a polite way, in a nice way. But there were lots of stories that I had sort of heard rumor of, but didn't really know the full story behind. And so as I started to reach out to people and they started to share their stories, I realized there is just so much that went into these 3 films. And at the heart of it, there were these 2 people, Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis, that had made a couple of films before, were really unsuccessful in a lot of ways with their previous films, and had so many challenges, especially getting that first film made, that it defies all odds that that movie was successful and spawned 2 sequels. And of all the things that I've ever written about, it's the one that I would say never, ever went away. I mean, Back to the Future has always been there in ways that, Pee Wee Herman has not been, or certainly, obviously, Howard the Duck, or even I wrote a book on the Dark Crystal, and that has sort of come back. But, for a long time, it was not in our pop culture landscape. Back to the Future has lasted for over 30 years, and I was interested in doing my little part to tell that story.
Awesome. And what was your writing process like for that?
Quick.
Well, you had to get a lot of information from a lot of different people, because I'm sure there's so many. Well, I think in the first chapter you say there's about 50 or so people that.
Oh my God! And
you got in touch with?
Yeah, you interviewed so many people for this book, and obviously you had to. I can't even imagine the process of back-checking as well when you were doing this. I mean, how long did it take you to do all this stuff?
Oh boy, it was so quick. It was from me having the idea to the book being in stores. It was probably about 18 months, which is
That's it?
Which is unhealthy. But I'll tell you why that happened. If you want a little bit of the inside baseball aspect of it, is it's very important to hit at the right time. And one of the things that I was really interested in, so I guess initially we were thinking that we were going to release it on the date that Marty actually travels to in part 2, which is in October of 2015, it would have been. However, when I started thinking about it, we thought, it might be a good idea to get it out in June, because the film actually came out 4th of July weekend. And so we would actually catch the anniversary, not just the date that Marty goes to in part 2, but also the 30-year anniversary of the film that started it all, of the first film, which made sort of for an interesting challenge, because if you think about it, we were all operating on a schedule to have the book out in October. That means cover art. That means, the writing process, the editing process, the interviewing process, all of that. And then at some point, we sort of made the decision to get it out, 4 or 5 months earlier, and everything just went into overdrive. And so sometimes when people ask me, how do you get over writer's block? I say, having a deadline, having a firm deadline, having something up on Amazon for pre-orders is a hell of a motivator to get you.
That'll give you a kick in the butt.
Yeah, it does. But it was great, and I have to say also, so many people were so happy to speak with me. I mean, that made it easier too. If I had to spend 6 months chasing people down, it would have been a nightmare. But I mean, when I spoke with Leah, for example, Leah would say, did you speak with Chris Lloyd? And when I would speak to Christopher Lloyd, he would say, did you speak to Huey Lewis? And when I spoke to, so everyone was really helpful in getting me in contact with other people, which was great. And so, and not just the names that you sort of know that come to mind, but even, camera people, the editors, all of these people, prop people, costume people. I mean, it takes a village to make a film. And the more voices that we had as part of this story, I think the better I was, the more tools I had to write the book I thought the film deserved.
It really is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you got all the actors and all that stuff, but to me, it was more amazing the fact that you got all the crew. From the people that did the DeLorean cars, from the people that were from Drew Struzan, from all the different stories that you managed to get, it was just unbelievable. And I'm just reading this like, oh my God, he got Zemeckis, he got Gale, he got Lloyd, he got Thompson, he got even Huey Lewis, even the producers, the camera crew, editors, like.
I think that's why it's so impressive that it only took you 18 months, because you're talking to a ton of people that worked on these films. You would think it would take, 6 months to track down one person in that sense.
Yeah. I was moving at 88 miles per hour. That's all I can say. I was driven, but and I'm glad I always have to take an opportunity to thank everyone that spoke to me for the book, because a book like this is only as good as the people that are willing to speak with you and also speak honestly with you. Because, look, my goal in writing this book was, just like both of you, I have the DVD or the Blu-ray. I've seen the special features. I've read things online. I have access to Wikipedia and Google. And so, what the book isn't worth doing if you can't get people to tell stories that haven't been told before, or at least tell them in ways that haven't been told before, with more detail and more color and more anecdotes. And so, because the cast and crew of the Back to the Future trilogy were so forthcoming with me, I was able to tell a story that, even though the Back to the Future trilogy has been written about and spoken about for 30 years at the time, I still think there's new information in that book and new perspective in that book and new voices in that book. And that's a cool thing to be able to do for something as well documented as the Back to the Future trilogy.
Well, Bob Gale said it best when he said, it's actually in this quote you'll find in the front cover, where it says, "A very compelling and enjoyable history of our trilogy. Reading it was like going back in time, and great Scott, there were even a few anecdotes that I've never even heard." So when you got one of the Bobs telling you that, you did something right.
It was very nice to get that quote. It made me, boy, I mean, it's a hell of an endorsement, and I'm thankful for it.
Well, one of the things that when you guys get to read the book, folks, we don't need Rose to make it into the Back to the Future trilogy. One of the things that, I mean, don't get me wrong, the whole book is amazing, but one of the things that really stood out for me, the Eric Stoltz story. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've heard about it so many times.
What a way to open a book, though. Let me tell you what. Start off with that.
I mean, how I don't even know how to find the right words for this. Like, because obviously we all know the story, but the way that you wrote it was so detailed. Like it almost like if, oh my God, this finally makes sense of what actually happened. How hard was that to do?
That was the aspect of the book that was most interesting to me initially, and again, like you said, I had heard about the Eric Stoltz story, but I was really curious about what it was like for these people who had to make the same film twice. It's one thing to sort of say, we worked with him and we shot the film for 6 weeks and then we had to recast it and then we did it all over. But like, you had to do it all over. I mean, that's crazy. And, Leah said something to me, which I always, when Eric Stoltz's name comes up, I always think about this, where she said, working with Michael was great because he was a great actor, but it was always bittersweet because she was a friend of Eric Stoltz. In fact, Leah got the job on Back to the Future in part because of Eric Stoltz. And
yes, that's right.
So she said, there isn't a moment in the Back to the Future trilogy where she isn't doing a scene with someone who basically is replacing an actor that, was fired or removed from the project in some capacity. So obviously in part one, it's Eric Stoltz. And in two, of course, it's Crispin Glover, who she had a great relationship with and was a great friend of hers. They became friends over the course of making the film. And Crispin did not return for the sequels. So, regarding the Eric Stoltz story, I was always so confused about how you can hire someone for the lead of your film and get it so wrong. How you can do that. And but I think when you see the way it unfolds, I think you sort of understand how there was sort of this perfect storm in a sense that led to Eric being hired and also provided the opportunity for him to be fired, frankly, and it to not be a super detriment to the film.
Yeah, as terrible as that was, it really did happen for a reason, and it was almost timed out so perfectly.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right there on the nail, because the thing about the book, it makes you feel, as us as fans, yes, we saw the movie and we enjoyed it, and we probably, oh wow, that sucks. But you just said the key word. All those crew people that had to make the same movie twice. What was their experience? What was that reaction when you know somebody that maybe you like, maybe you don't like, but he's the star of your movie, and then he gets fired? What was that reaction like? And in the book, you'll see literally reactions from some of the main actors as well as some of the crew members. And I have to say, my favorite one was from Christopher Lloyd.
That's my favorite too.
And if you want to know what I'm talking about, folks, you got to buy the book.
That's right.
That's right. Caseen, what? I have such a deep respect for writers. My girlfriend also is a writer as well, and I've seen her when she's working on writing and everything. It's like it is not an easy task. But I've always been curious to ask writers this: how did publishing your first book, in this case, if I'm not mistaken, was the Inside Pee-wee's Playhouse, The Untold? I love this title, The Untold, Unauthorized, and Unpredictable Story of a Pop Phenomenon, which, by the way, you won the 2012 Independent Publisher Book Award. Congrats.
Yes, thank you.
How did publishing that first book of yours change your writing, like for the next books? Like, how did that change everything for you?
Oh boy, thank you for that question. That's, I think, like making a movie, writing a book is one of those things that I think feels so unattainable to so many people. When you walk into a bookstore, you see all these books and you go like, how do these things even get made? Like, how's that even possible? But it's amazing because it is hard. It definitely is hard. I mean, I don't want to minimize it, but it's also doable, and I think when, for me, it's always important to find what is the most interesting story for me. And then if it's interesting to me, I sort of trust that it's also going to be interesting to other people. I mean, you can imagine in, for example, the Eric Stoltz situation, you can imagine that someone else might say, I don't really find that all that interesting. He wasn't even in the movie. Why am I going to spend, whatever it is, 20 pages, 30 pages, whatever it is, talking about Eric Stoltz, some guy who wasn't even in the movie. But to me, that was such a great example of what people were willing to go through to make this movie that ended up being a guiding light for the rest of their process. And so, doing that Pee Wee Herman book, when it was published, I couldn't believe it. Was like, like Life Made, I felt the same way about having something in Rolling Stone. I don't know why Rolling Stone I held on this amazing pedestal, but like there was something about Rolling Stone that made me go like, oh my goodness, it's Rolling Stone. And I tried and I offered them dozens of ideas. There were so many ideas that they rejected. But the Weird Al one was one that they liked. And I got Al to talk to me for it. Believe it or not, you'll appreciate this. I actually ended up getting Al to participate for the Rolling Stone piece because Peyton Reed, who is the director of the Ant-Man films, he's the director of Bring It On, he's the director of Down with Love and a number of other films. He actually got his start in the movie business doing the featurettes. So he didn't actually work on the Back to the Future films, but he made the behind the scenes features for the Back to the Future trilogy, for the sequels actually, for 2 and 3. So I actually met Peyton working on this book, and when I was just racking my brain out trying to think of ways that I could get Rolling Stone to say yes to me, I thought of Peyton, who was the director for all 13 episodes of the Weird Al Show. Spoke to Peyton,
that's great.
Asked him if he would be interested. He said absolutely. He spoke to Al for me. And then with Peyton and Weird Al together, I went to Rolling Stone and said, I have the two of them. Can we do something? So you never know how it's all connected, is I guess my point.
That's so cool.
That's insane. That's like the first image I had is like, when the FBI is doing like they're passing the line, like, okay, this is connected to this and this is connected to that, and the big board. Wow, that's insane.
Instead of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, we're going to do 6 degrees of Caseen Gaines.
That's right. I can't even imagine, because I know you were a teacher. You're a high school English teacher, right?
Yes.
And like, have you ever kind of like some of your students come over and like, I don't know, ask you questions about like back of the books? I'm like, I wish I had a teacher that did this.
I wish I had a teacher that was as cool as you.
Oh my goodness. Well, look, when you're a teenager, I don't know how cool you find it, but I think there's definitely been kids. So the Back to the Future book was my third book that I'd written, and the first one was on Pee-wee's Playhouse, the second one was on A Christmas Story, but I didn't feel like my students really thought that I was kind of cool until the Back to the Future book, because they knew it. And it came out in 2015. And so, they knew enough to be interested in hoverboards and all of that. It was everywhere. I mean, you guys know, it was everywhere in 2015.
Yeah.
And so the fact that their teacher had written a book about it, it was like, it was the closest that I've ever felt to being a little bit of a celebrity. Was being at school around the time of the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future. That was a fun time.
That's gotta be weird when you have one of your students. Can I get your autograph? I'm like, I'm your teacher.
Yeah, it's weird. It's also weird when it's like parent-teacher conferences or like a parent meeting, especially when it's I've had this situation where I've had a disciplinary meeting with a parent. And like I've had the meeting, and like at the end of the meeting, the parents like, and I just have one more thing to say. Do you mind signing?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna punish him. Like, do you mind signing this book? Oh my God, if you don't feel cool about after that, Caseen, I don't know what to feel. And this is actually a book that I've mentioned to you that I have to buy. I am a Christmas Story fan. Like,
me too.
We, in my household, like there was rules. Every Christmas we had to see A Christmas Story on TNT, like over and over and over. But it amazes me how much of a backstory this movie has. And I've heard, again, same thing with Back to the Future. I've heard things. And your book, A Christmas Story Behind the Scenes of a Holiday Classic, I need to get my hands on that one, because this book is like, okay, this is the reason why I was here, why I was born. I need to read this book. And again, you got obviously interviews with cast, people, crew members, everything. working from A Christmas Story, obviously from Pee-wee to A Christmas Story to Back to the Future, can you say that it was the same pattern in the sense of like, were you like in shock with all the things that you were learning from behind the scenes?
Yeah, yes, I think so. And, you know, one of the things too, when you start to write a book or anything, even if you think back to like grade school, like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a 5-paragraph essay or something like that. Like sometimes you start and you don't really know where it's going to end up. So all of the books really have surprised me because I've learned things, obviously, through the researching process that really have shocked me. And a great example of that with the Back to the Future book is I had heard really casually, like a very surface level understanding that there was a stunt woman who was injured on the set of Back to the Future 2. I had no idea how all that went into that story. It is a remarkable story, and not in a good way as to what happened to her. But I didn't know that. When I sat down to start writing and interviewing people, that just sort of came out. And it's funny because I was speaking to some of the stunt people, and they would sort of like say, has anyone spoken to you about? And Cheryl, and I was like, yeah, I know that she fell. And they were like, yeah, but like, has anyone like spoken to you about it? And I was like, no, not really. I mean, can you speak to me? And they would kind of go like, no. I mean, I better not if no one else has. So it really wasn't until I spoke to Cheryl myself that she just told me this amazing story. And I knew that it was going to end up being a big part of the book. And so I'm feeling compelled to say, and this is, I hate to say this, but I'm feeling compelled to say I'm getting distracted because just a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago or so, Cheryl actually died. She was actually killed recently, and it is such a tragic story. She was such an amazing person. I had the opportunity to speak with her many times for many hours for this book, and not just for the book, but I'm saying just she did such amazing activism work. She really was a great person that people should look up if you are unfamiliar with her. Cheryl Wheeler is her name, and really just recently had a horrible end of her life.
Yeah, it was such a shame to hear about that.
Yeah. So as I'm telling this story, it's just I'm being reminded of that. So.
No, and it's again, it's things that you actually. How many times have we seen the movie and you see that scene in the courthouse, in the courthouse, and it's one of those things that like it was amazing because I've never even paid it I just never paid attention to that one. But that little scene is so fast that when it happens, and then after reading your book and you go back and see it, you're like, oh my god! Like then you really feel it, and then the aftermath of what this poor woman went through is just unbelievable.
You can't unsee it. Right? I mean, once you see it, once you see it in the film, like it's impossible to miss.
Correct, and. I mean, and it's noted to say that obviously the crew and the movie people they took care of her and everything, but still it's just the price. And I've always said this, Caseen, that I don't feel like stunt actors get the respect and the acknowledgement that they deserve. Some of these stunt people do some amazing things. I mean, we see them all the time, but it's just like why don't they have their own awards or something, for stunt actors? Speaking for example, when you see the John Wick movies, it's almost like it's not easy.
No, not at all.
I mean,
they really don't get the recognition they deserve.
Michael J. Fox, stunt actor, he's been with him for over 30 years?
Yeah. It's
unbelievable. But
and when you think about it, it's, there's different, there's things that we consider sort of legitimate acting. I'm thinking about like Andy Serkis and all of his work with motion capture. There are things that we consider being legitimate and things that we don't. And that's part of the reason why whenever I approach a project like this, I try and speak to the camera people, the crew. Look, if you want to know what's going on in a set, don't ask the actors, because the actors have PR people, they have reputations, they have agents, they have, they have all of this, they have an image to uphold. If you really want to get what's going on, you talk to the camera people, because they are the people. Camera people have never steered me wrong. They're always the people.
Go to the crew members. Speaking of that, Caseen, what would you consider, you kind of briefly mentioned it earlier a little bit, but what do you consider as your writing kryptonite?
Oh, geez. Wow. My writing kryptonite. Wow. Boy, oh boy.
That was it. That question right there. That was it. That was the kryptonite.
Question, I have to say, credit to you both, because you give lots of chats about your work, and that's a great question. My writing kryptonite, I would say, is, I'm a sucker for. So I guess what really. You really stumped me. I have to say, this is making.
That's the kryptonite.
I don't know if this is making for good audio or horrible audio. You know what it is?
No, it's good. It's going great.
I will tell you what really gets me is when I have an interview, and this often happens late in the process. It's never like the first interview you do. It's like the 50th, and someone says something that makes you reconsider like a significant portion of your book, and you have to then go back and either change things or reevaluate things or take things out. That's something that is really sort of difficult to navigate. The other thing too, with writing a book like this, you asked a question before about fact checking, and I think I make a note of this in the introduction, is, everyone's memory is unreliable, and everyone's memory is based on interpretation. The three of us on this call may have a different perception of how this call's going, for example. And so my sort of job as the author is to try and tell the most accurate version of the truth based on what makes sense and based on how many sources I can get to corroborate a story. And so I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, going back to, what's a good example? So good examples like Crispin Glover, right? So Crispin Glover in the sequels, he did not return for the sequels. Why didn't he return? Okay. Bob Gale has a version of the story. Crispin has a version of the story, and there were other people that were involved in, studio executives, other actors that knew them personally and things like that. And when you start to sort of put all of those pieces together, you sort of get a sense, perhaps, how two things can be true at the same time, if that makes sense. How, Bob Gale's perception of it and also Crispin's perception of it can both be right, even though they have different versions of the story. And my job is to sort of play traffic cop and navigate through those waters a little bit. It's tricky. And I will tell you, it's always difficult when you're writing about people that actually exist, especially people that you've spoken to, because, of course, everyone's going to read the book. And, of course, people are going to let you know their thoughts on it. And so, some people sometimes say, well, that's not exactly the way I remember it. And it's like, okay, well, you remembered it one way, and like 4 other people remembered it a different way. And so I'm sorry, I'm sorry that's not the way that you remember it. But, I'm always very aware to try and tell the most comprehensive version of the truth. And when there are big differences, trying to say, here are some of the big differences, and let the reader, I suppose, sort of, make their own judgment as to what they think makes most sense.
And I think at the end of the day, that's pretty much where it comes down to, that every one of us, when we read that book, we will get to our own conclusions. We will decide, okay, I believe this guy, or I believe this other person, or anything like that. It's like, I think you just answered like my other question, because I was going to ask you what would be the best advice for writers. And I think the best advice is that as a writer, and speaking of people that are real people, you have to play traffic cop.
Yeah.
That's, and it's not that easy, because I think it's easier to make up a story about, this hero that, I don't know, flies and, shoots lasers out of his eyes. No, that has never been invented, right?
No, it's totally an original idea. Eugene, you should totally write
don't steal
a
my
book
idea,
about
Caseen.
I'm already doing it.
Damn it. But when you're talking about people that actually exist, and especially even to put more pressure on you about a movie trilogy that people love. This is one of those movies that has come from generation to generation. I mean, fathers showing it to their kids. Now those kids have grown up showing it to their kids.
Yep.
And when you are writing about something, I guess negative in that aspect, I don't know if that's the correct word, Caseen. I don't know. I hate saying negative, but because
all stories have their ups and downs.
Yeah,
so you
I
got
guess
to do
so.
the good, the bad, the ugly.
Exactly. And when you're writing about that, I can't even imagine the pressure of if you're like, wow, should I even put this in the book? But
it's a part of the story.
It's part of the story. So so kudos to you for doing that, because you really, I feel like and especially folks, when you read this book, the We Don't Need Roads to Make It the Back to the Future trilogy, you're gonna really get into that deep in that questioning of, oh my God, would I have put this on the book when you're writing this? Because it takes balls, man. I tell you that. And you can quote me on that one.
Look, you guys may not be ready for it, but your kids are going to love it. That.
Oh my God, this he's good. Of all the people, and then obviously your last book, for those fans that are out there, the Dark Crystal, the Ultimate Visual History. I've actually one of my buddies is a big fan of that, so he's going to definitely order that. And that's your fourth book, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of all the books you read and everything, who's the most exciting person you have met so far?
Oh boy. Oh.
I mean, in all fairness,
other than us,
because we already know that answer. But who's the second most exciting person you have met?
So, do you mean someone that I've met as a result, like someone that I've actually spoken to for the book, or someone that I've met like
for the book?
Okay, so for the book. So, of those,
not necessarily the Back to the Future, but any of the 4 books that you wrote.
Yeah. So I would say of the. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can probably say this. I'm going to sort of answer this in a different sort of way and say, so I have another project that I wrote that it isn't out yet, but I worked on another Ultimate Visual History on the making of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And so...
Hot scoop!
So,
breaking.
And so for that, I did, and this is, now I'm coming full circle. I said I wasn't going to name drop, but I did speak to Steven Spielberg for the book. And that's when my recorder didn't work. That was the one.
Wait.
I said before. I said it was Zemeckis and Spielberg are the 2 times my recorder didn't work. And so, but so I would say probably the most exciting is probably Steven, and he was look, it's nerve wracking. I mean, it's Steven freaking Spielberg, and you are, you're nervous and you're thinking about every movie that you love and that, but he couldn't have been a nicer guy. He really couldn't have. And I think it gets down to, I've been very fortunate with all the things that I've written, because everything that I've written about, including even Howard the Duck and including the Spider-Man musical, everything was, the people that worked on it liked talking about it. It wasn't like, sometimes when you meet a celebrity or something and they're like, I don't want to talk about this thing I did 30 years ago. And, they're all grumpy about it. Everyone that I've ever spoken to really has been filled with joy, or has been reflective, or at least in Howard the Duck's case, sees the humor in what happened, afterwards. And so to have the opportunity to talk with Steven about E.T., which is just a film that is probably his film that's closest to his heart, was just a great experience. And at no point has anyone made me feel like it was an imposition. The other person that I would probably say, and I know I've mentioned her quite a bit, but is probably Leah. And the reason for that is Leah is great at giving you like the story she probably shouldn't give you. Like she always says like, I have this bad habit too. She always like says like one thing extra that makes you go like, oh, wait, can you elaborate on that? And so she's very, she's great to talk to and really honest and genuine. And so she's a great, and also I've met her several times in real life, and she's wonderful. She's a nice person.
Yes, she is. She's the best.
All we're going to tell to our all the people that are listening, we're just going to say this. Dennis Quaid. Read the book. You know what we're talking about.
Yes, that part was great.
Well, we really appreciate Caseen, you saying that Spielberg was number 2 and us were number 1. I mean, I feel very honored by that.
I do too.
Yes, absolutely. Let me tell you something. You guys fast tracked right up. I'm gonna be lying in bed tonight going, a kryptonite question. Boy, oh boy. I've been writing books for almost 10 years, and that was I don't think I've ever stumbled like that in an interview.
We ask the hard-hitting questions here at What the Flux.
Yeah, we don't ask like, what's your favorite color in this show? Nah.
I mean, we are interested.
What is your favorite color?
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color, I would probably say black, just because or blue, black or blue. And I'm not like into bruises or anything like that. I don't want you to read into that. But those are probably my 2 favorite colors.
I enjoy that color scheme as well. Yeah. That's my favorite.
I don't know why.
Too.
I'm a lighthearted person, but there's something about like a dark color scheme that like I appreciate.
Right?
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Because I actually I admire something that you do, and this is off the topic from Back to the Future. I actually. I know that you also, one of the things that you do is you focus on racial representations in popular culture. I love that fact that, what's your opinion on like with black superheroes in today's world? Like, for example, when we had the Black Panther, that was unbelievable. It's actually one of my favorite movies. I've always loved the comic book. And when I finally got to see this character on the movie screen, unbelievable. It was just it was really cool, and the way they played it and the effects, everything. Obviously, another character I like, I hope that he can have his own movie, Cyborg from the New Teen Titans and everything like that. What's your opinion on that?
Look, my opinion is that people want to see themselves reflected on screen, in stories. People, everyone... Look, as a kid, I certainly related to people like Marty McFly, and other, obviously, Friends is a show that I love. I watch Friends almost every day. But it isn't lost on me that like, I'm a black person and there are like no black people in the show. And I think that, the more representation that you have, the more people have entry points into being able to imagine themselves and see themselves, and also the different kinds of stories that you get, because everyone has a different perspective. Like I said before, We Don't Need Roads is the book it is because I wrote it. If someone else wrote a different book, that would be a different thing. And so I think, you get better stories the more storytellers you have in the mix, and you get more people that become inspired, frankly, to be storytellers and tell cool stories that we haven't seen before when they have an entry point into whether it's comic books or movies or film or plays or anything like that. Books, certainly.
Definitely. We want to, and that's one of the things that we want to do with this, having you in this show, is that we want to inspire everybody out there. No matter the race, no matter the sex, no matter whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have an idea, I don't know, you have that thing that you think it's crazy that, maybe it could work.
If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Well, damn you! You read what I was going to read. But like I always tell. I remember I was one day. You might appreciate this, Caseen. I was actually one day doing a kind of like one of those like a little influential speeches to a couple of students, and I told them, somebody asked me, I want to come up with an idea, but sometimes I think they're stupid. And I told them, well, yeah, sometimes we do have stupid ideas, and that's okay. Because maybe that idea might be stupid now, but years later it might become something better. Like, you still should work on that. And always remember, there was a guy at a boardroom that said, what if we made a movie of sharks in a tornado?
Let me tell you something. I don't know the exact story, but I'm going to bet there was no boardroom with that story. that was a guy who had a few too many who said,
and we salute you.
That's what happened. But you know what? Yeah, and I have to say, I have never been someone who, look, I grew up liking a lot of really weird stuff. I mean, you know, I grew up on a heavy diet of Pee-wee's Playhouse, for goodness sake, which is a strange show, objectively speaking. And then I said, I'm going to write a book about this strange show. And, you know, and then I was able to. And I will tell you, of all of the things I've written, it's the only thing that I've written where I've won an award for my writing. So, I mean, like, you know, you never know. I mean, you know, embrace your weird, embrace the weird things that you like.
That's an awesome.
Yes.
I like that. I like that.
Hey, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing too.
Because there are lots of weird people out there. So, like, you know, sometimes, you know, it may not feel that way, like in high school and grade school in the corporate world, but like, people are a lot weirder than they claim to be. So embrace the weirdness.
Let your freak flag fly, as they say.
As they say.
I like better how he said.
Hey.
Caseen, last question. First of all, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's been so much fun. I feel like we could just talk for hours and hours.
This is really my pleasure. It's been such a great chat.
But unfortunately, we got the last question of the day. And this is a question, obviously, that has to do with Back to the Future. If you could time travel and you could meet your younger self, what advice would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself it's going to be a strange, strange ride. That's what I would tell myself. I would tell myself it's going to be so strange. If you had told me when I was a kid, watching all these things I write about, that I was going to have an opportunity to speak to these people and tell their stories and be able to meet them and go on What the Flux and be able to have these great experiences. I'll sum it up this way. When I spoke with Huey Lewis and I called him, if this isn't the most Huey Lewis story ever, when I called Huey Lewis, he said, Caseen, I'm looking at my agenda here, and it says that you are a pop culture historian. Brother, if you can make a living as a pop culture historian, you are living the American dream. And and sometimes that's the way I feel. I get to write about really fun things that I love and that touch so many of us, and things that, you know, sometimes people feel like are silly or, you know, disposable things. But, you know, as people that are doing this podcast, you know, it's important to people, and these films mean things to a lot of people, and they're all a part of our shared history. And so to be able to be a part of that in some capacity, I'm really proud. And so I would tell myself, buckle up. It's going to be a fun ride.
I mean, you said it yourself, and I think this sums it all up. Embrace the weird.
Embrace the weird.
Embrace the weird. Well, Caseen, thank you so much for your time. Folks, the book is called We Don't Need Roads, The Making of the Back to the Future Trilogy. We highly recommend it. We give it 88 stars.
That's right. 88 thumbs up. If I had 88 thumbs, they'd all be pointing up.
Caseen, thank you so much for your time. I'll definitely be messaging you, because I definitely want those. I'm going to be ordering some books from you. And you were I was like, I met you as a fan, and you now probably will have more fans, but it was really cool having you. It's really cool when you meet somebody that you have admired their work, and when you actually get the chance to talk to them, you're just wow, this guy's really cool. So thank you so much for that.
I appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for your comments and for the great chat. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Well, you can come back anytime if you ever want to talk about anything. Where can people find you?
I am on social media at Caseen Gaines. That's CASEENGAINES. Also CaseenGaines.com. And there are some links to some of, actually, I think all the articles and things that we spoke about on this podcast are there, and you can read them for free. And I am, look out, follow me on social media so you can see what else I'm up to.
It's awesome. And you say you're working on the ET book. When is that going to be coming out?
That I can't say, but I can say, but it will be out. It'll be out.
Don't say in the future.
It'll be in the future. There you go. Good answer. It'll be out in the future. But it's let me tell you, it's a fun story. It's an exciting story. And so if you're a fan of ET, and let's be honest, who isn't?
Right.
But make sure you're following me on social media so that you can get all the deets.
Awesome, folks. Caseen Gaines, the one, the only Caseen Gaines. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Stay safe, and hopefully all this will be over soon. And we come back. We can see you again on the other conventions. If you actually come to a convention in Orlando, Florida, please let us know so we can come and visit.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Well, that was amazing.
That was awesome.
I'm speechless. Like I said, it's really. I've been following his career for a couple of years now, and when you actually get the chance to talk to somebody that you admire their work and they just turn out to be even better than you expected, it's just unbelievable. So that was fun.
That was fun. I hope we can have him on again sometime.
Yeah, definitely when we start our ET podcast.
Yeah, totally. You know what, I wanted to ask him, but I didn't want to him to spoil too much of the book. I'm sure if he got Steven Spielberg, then he totally got in touch with Drew Barrymore, and that's just awesome to me. I love her.
Well, folks, we don't have Drew Barrymore now, but
no, we don't.
We'll still be working on coming up with more amazing shows for you guys. We are really excited for this. The book again is called "We Don't Need Roads: Making the Back to the Future Trilogy." Caseen Gaines, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
it's so much worth it. And folks, just stay safe. Everybody be positive. Everybody, if you feel a little bit of gloom, just put some Back to the Future.
That's right.
That's what I do.
That's what I do too.
That's what the cool kids do.
Oh.
And guys,
whether it be the future or the past, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to What the Flux. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WhatTheFlux_pod. Please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. And be sure to recommend us to your other time-traveling friends.
Hasta la bye-bye!